We got company.
Broadsword calling Danny Boy.
Alistair MacLean's novels thrilled moviegoers of the 60s and 70s with their big-budget, wall-to-wall action and suspenseful plot twists in hits such as The Guns of the Navarone and Ice Station Zebra. In the late 60s, MacLean was asked to deliver a new project, the result being the script for one of the cinema's greatest men-on-a-mission action movies, 1968's Where Eagles Dare. So it's 6 months before the invasion of Europe in 1944, and a team of commandos led by British Major John Smith, Richard Burton, is hired to rescue an American general who's been captured by the Germans and taken to the ominous Schloss Adler, a Nazi fortress high in the Alps.
Somebody's got to be crazy. Just how'd your colonel expect anyone to get in there?
I suppose he feels if he could penetrate the German High Command, there's no reason why we should have any difficulty getting up there.
Along for the ride on this British mission is American Ranger Lieutenant Maurice Schaefer, played by Clint Eastwood, as well as Mary Ure, a female operative who obviously manages to parachute in and do her hair and makeup in preparation for the mission. But to be fair to her, she does actually get a modest amount to do during the film. Guys, I'm Stephen at Real Classic Film Reviews. Thank you for clicking on the video. Please click that subscribe button and drop a like on the video if you're a fan of films just like this one. But for now, let's get back to the video. So the military brass are understandably concerned that the general will be interrogated, and being one of the planners of the second front, the team are tasked with getting him back before he breaks. The team land near the fortress in Bavaria, but when one of them is found dead in the snow by the others, it's written off as an accident, but Smith has some doubts and already begins to suspect all is not as it seems. So Where Eagles Dare is a bit more of a boy's own adventure than something like Guns of the Navarone, but unlike most war movies from the 60s with roughly the same hefty running time as this, it moves along at a pretty fast pace. After the initial parachute drop, the whole thing doesn't really let up for its entire running time, and until what's left of the mission gets back on a plane at the end, barely escaping German fire, and even then there's a final twist. Fans of MacLean's novels will be familiar with and enjoy the treacherous double-crossing that's always part of his plots. And this time it's hard to trust anyone really, especially one clever sequence around a table deep in the fortress that takes some following as power shifts from one side to another.
Well, gentlemen, I'm very glad to see you all here, safe and sound, enjoying a drink. I'm sorry to interrupt you. Lieutenant, drop that gun.
What?
Drop that gun and sit down.
Where Eagles Dare rises above the usual gung-ho World War II movies, as it takes a simple tale of a rescue mission and expands it into like a spy thriller. Which isn't to say that the director and his team don't make sure that car chases and shootouts, huge explosions, and since this is the Alps, cable car fights are front and centre. The film's central escape sequence from the castle stronghold, all bullets and explosions, explores the labyrinth of passageways that leads out to the film's celebrated cable car fight, that despite showing its age is still pretty thrilling and quite a nasty bit of action. And even then there's a final act involving an icy and explosive car chase and a seat-of-your-pants aeroplane escape attempt. So coming at a time when the James Bond films were so popular, it's easy to assume that any studio would want their film as brimming with action and intrigue as the latest 007 outing. And there is a bit of a Bond vibe running through Where Eagles Dare, down to the snowy setting, the mountaintop base of villainy and the spectacular over-the-top bursts of action. It all looks great, and it's also admirable how the tension remains high throughout the runtime. You know, whenever the mission goes wrong, which it quite frequently does, you really want to see how Eastwood and Burton will wriggle/shoot their way out of it. castle stronghold, the Schloss Adler, or the Castle of the Eagles, is actually the Burg Hohenwerfen, an 11th century castle in Austria that plays its part as a Nazi nest perfectly. And the other wintry alpine scenes were also shot on location in Austria. Aside from the odd dated back projection effect scene, cinematographer Arthur Ibbotson manages to make one of the coldest looking films ever. So cast-wise, we've got Richard Burton, and he's got the meatiest part and does a great job despite drinking heavily throughout the shoot due to his failing marriage and failing movie career at the time. He apparently disappeared to Paris during the shoot to go on a colossal drinking binge with Peter O'Toole and Richard Harris. He gets the most dialogue and is technically the lead role. Eastwood admittedly gets a bit less to say, but he has that amazing screen presence and gets to make up for playing second fiddle when it comes to the action sequences. His US Rangers spraying bullets around with wild abandon. In fact, this is Eastwood's highest body count in any of his films. Brimming with pretty faceless, nameless baddies, the one enemy Nazi character that stands out is Derren Nesbitt's Gestapo agent von Hopin. He looks and acts like a slimy piece of work with his Aryan blonde hair. He just has that look of the stereotypical Nazi agent, and he's great in this.
Thank God you're here, Major. We were just about to go...
Sit down, Colonel!
Everybody remain as he is. Until I find out what exactly is going on here.
Directed by Brian G. Hutton, who would team up with Eastwood a year later for another Men on a Mission movie, the more light-hearted Kelly's Heroes, where Eagles Dare remains one of the great war movies and even a favourite amongst modern directors like Spielberg and Tarantino. It's a pretty long film, but it makes use of its running time to fit in huge amounts of action, intrigue and plot revelations. Go check it out.
Heidi will tell you what to do from now on. She's been one of our top agents in Bavaria since 1941, and what a disguise.